Live from Run Your Mouth World Headquarters.
First up, why the United States Aviation Authority is recommending that travelers on Boeing planes bring their own doors. Next up, as daylight saving approaches, our health coach weighs in on how much daylight you should save. An exclusive coverage of the people in 2023 who saved too much.
She can't answer you. She tried saving daylight last year. She's just not the same.
Next up, our mixologist explains the at-home cocktail you can make to have Biden's rage for a full hour.
This malarkey will not stand!
And the hot mic from before the speech.
Hot damn, Hunter got the good crack. I can read again, but I'm also so angry.
And lastly, we explore the German toddlers holding up Ukraine's war funds and the government's efforts to get them back. Ah, yes, we love bombing things. Ah, so fun. Ah, I want to explode so bad.
It's your daily dose of misinformation, pulled from a lightly hemorrhoided asshole. It's today's Run Your Mouth! What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Run Your Mouth podcast. I put up the wrong version of the intro. You know, that was version 3. We had version 4. We got a whole production team. I yelled at them. I told them they had to put the background music in. I've been working on my yelling skills, so we'll get that updated. Anyways, it's a pleasure to be back with everybody. Listen, the fate of the country, it's in flux. We've got people screaming and yelling whether or not we're even going to have elections, whether or not they're going to let Donald Trump back into office. All these court cases ramping up. And here's what I think we should do. Remember the first 2 weeks of COVID and how much fun it was to go back to your parents' house and be an alcoholic? When you get, like, the first 2 weeks when it was fun and we got to panic. So here's what I think. I think we should do a new COVID for a shorter run and have the cure be whatever drugs they have Biden doing. And I got to be honest, at this point, I'm getting bored with the Biden dementia jokes, but they're still putting them out there. And they keep rolling them out there. And then you're still just having to stand over here going, but doesn't the guy have dementia? And then they keep putting him out there. And so I'd almost like it. Let's maybe go the RFK route just so we can start finding some new jokes. Aren't we getting bored of the guy who just seemingly has dementia? We all pretend continues to be fine. Now, listen, you guys have all heard plenty about what went on with the State of the Union. And I did a whole episode with Dave about it. I had a wedding that I had to go to last night. Otherwise, we would have gotten this one out while this stuff was still hot. So we're going to keep it brief. We're going to keep it short. We're going to give it a quick recap for all those people that didn't have the time to actually watch the State of the Union. I'll give you the quick recap. Biden basically went out there and said, "We're doing so amazing. It's all great. It's wonderful." And then some Republican lady came on afterwards to go, "We're all going to die." How did the Republicans fuck that one up? At first, I was watching that lady in a bar, and I was like, man, who is this gorgeous lady? I was just sitting there nodding. Yes, whatever she's saying. Like she was I don't know, the snake charmer for people with my sensibilities, where it's like, yes, whatever she's saying, I'm on board. But then I actually listened to her, and you're like, wow, this is one hell of a crazy lady. And by the way, you listen to this lady when she talks normally, and you're like, just do that. That makes sense. But then she was giving this speech, and firstly, they did her dirty when they had the camera on her before they actually turned on the camera. Oh, that's a nasty trick to do to someone when they're not yet in character, and they're trying to, like, take a moment, and they're trying to actually get into their zone. Like, if you see me on this show before I start pacing around yelling and screaming, I'm a very calm guy, and then I have to put on the character. You don't want to see it before I get started and get going. It makes me look bad. You're like, this guy's not a yelly, screamy person at all. But they did this lady dirty. In the first couple seconds of that video, she's just sitting there, and then she gets that little psychotic grin going, and she was basically rotating between 3 characters. And, you know, if you're trying to showcase, hey, we can do a better job running the country, and there's a guy with dementia yelling on scream, how do you go down your ranks and find somebody even more psychotic? So basically, the lady rotated between 3 characters. She had the, I'm just going to talk to you like a human being voice, which I think that would work great for that lady. But then sometimes she would go into the, and I'm your mom, and I love you, and I care for you. She was playing that character. The overly aggressive going for the Oscar, I'm your mom on the Hallmark Channel character. And then she had the psychotic lady reporting a rape that never happened character. We've all seen that one in a movie in front of the cops, and you realize how nasty of a person the lady is when she's claiming that some incident didn't happen and getting overly dramatic about the horrible things that happened. Just rotating between these three characters like psychotic person. Like there was a little light going on of, okay, now we need you to do this. Like who sat down and casted that? We got an episode coming out on Part of the Problem. Sometimes we record and then they got to do the gas digital shenanigans. It goes up on the thing. It goes up on the that. Blah. And so I try not to front run the Dave Smith information because sometimes I get the front row seat. I get to sit there while it's going on live, and then I get to put out episodes before it. I don't want to steal the good talking points. But Dave did a whole rundown about Victoria Nuland and what went on in the Ukraine. And you hear that story about how good the deep state is at casting individuals. And you hear about the marketing teams in New York City that were able to run the algorithms of who they can get elected and whatnot. And the point I'm trying to make is when the Republicans sit around and they try and get someone who can just sit down and go, hey, Biden was lying to you. Here's why he was lying to you. And a person who's very attractive, probably even pretty smart, but I guess what was going for Hollywood actress moment of I'm going to outdo Meryl Streep, showcase the three characters I can play, and win myself the bullshit Oscars. Just put a normal person up to say normal things. Did you guys see Colonel McGregor? He gave his own, firstly, I thought RFK Jr., way to show up and be boring. He put out his own version. That one sucked. But Colonel McGregor, he put up a good one. You guys should go watch that one. And you're like, this is what politics is actually supposed to sound like. A guy who seems smarter than I am, more disciplined and put together than I am, going, hey, everyone, we got to get our acts together because this is what we should be doing. And here's why what they're doing is a disaster. You're like, that's the way that should be done. All right, so go back to Biden and all the things that were going on during the speech. Firstly, it's an odd thing where he's like, all right, everyone, settle down. I need you to sit still while I yell at you and say that it's your fault, but no heckling. You just have to sit there and smile and nod and be complicit as I blame you for not building the wall that I never wanted and getting in the way of my plans to legalize the illegal immigration. Of course you're going to end up with more heckling. And dude, for as crazy of a lady as MTG is, wow, she won that one. Did she not win that one? Is that not a victory lap in the MTG one? Before it, handing him the proof of his failed policy and then heckling him, hey, won't you address your failed policy? And then him getting like all, oh my God, why am I being yelled at? All right, you think you're going to yell, I'm going to yell. And then trying to yell back at her angrily and then accidentally conceding that his immigration policy is not working because we're incentivizing people to come over and then messing up the name of the individual in what I don't think was supposed to be a part of his speech, but just got totally just fumbled on that one. Points for MTG. And you know what? Making the crazy conservative ladies looking okay. Because if you just watched the recap after of that crazy lady playing her psychotic characters, you'd be like, we have to get the psychotic, younger, better-looking women out of the Republican movement. But there was a victory live on air by the psychotic Republic women, so, I guess they went 50-50 on that day, which by baseball standards isn't bad. All right. Now, here was something that did not come up at all during the State of the Union address, and I think it's an important issue facing our nation, and I think if there was one thing that we need to address as a country, it's this. At what point are there enough airplane incidents that we have to bring down the prices of alcohol prices at the airport? I mean, listen, I'm not going to stop flying. I'm not going to stop doing gigs. If there's one thing I learned from COVID, it's fuck it, I'm going to be even more reckless. That's what you took all the fear that I had and, hey, I got to stay home and be safe, and you extinguished it in 2 years. And yes, in the future, you're probably going to have airplanes with doors falling clean off. You're going to have to start bringing your own parachutes. You're going to have to get those race car things to cement yourself into the plane because I guess Boeing, I don't know. How do you mess up being Boeing? Don't you have, maybe they were putting all the money into the stealth bombers and they stopped putting the doors onto the airplanes properly, or everyone that that was good at securing airplane doors quit over COVID. I don't know what happened that we now have just doors falling out of the sky, and that's just the doors. I mean, the doors we can see. Who knows what's going on in the internal parts of this thing, right? I mean, if you came back from the doctor and then your arm fell clean off, I'd be like, well, what else did the doctor overmiss? I mean, who knows how black your internal organs are, right? So, anyways, if I'm going to have to get on flights and be more concerned for my own safety, I feel like they can, at a minimum, make the alcohol at the airport cheaper. I feel like that's a bit of a compromise. All right, let's take a couple of comments here, if I can even read them. RYM, nah, we're not going to read that one. Roscoe, POP, I'm sad I couldn't come to Omaha. I missed you. You showed up with the silver last year. It was a good time. Omaha, the best audiences. Todd Hollins, get your Bitcoin off the exchanges, Rob. That's an excellent point, something that I should do, and probably won't, but I should. I agree with you that that's something that I should be doing. All right, so let's, this was fun. So it seems like with Biden, they're giving him some sort of narcotic that, you know, gives him about an hour. It's kind of like this Cinderella story. You got an hour and then you're going to turn into a pumpkin. It's like in the Mission Impossible movies or whatever, they stick something into some guy's neck and you're like, you're going to have the face of the person that you're supposed to look like. But if you're still in that room in an hour, there's nothing we can do for you. And so somehow they get him through the speech. I guess I didn't make it. Did you guys watch the whole thing? I'm the guy who likes watching these things. I couldn't even watch the whole thing. But, you know, from what I was hearing, he started to fade in the back half. But, you know, you were watching him and you're like, how did he get through this without fumbling? And just one day later, he's back in front of the television cameras. And for those that were concerned, we've got the, we've got the real Biden back. Let's give it a watch.
And what they're going to do is to ensure a national, really endanger our national security. They're going to expend, are they going to expand personal freedoms? Well, that's what we're going to do. They're going to do everything to not grow our economy. Literally, they have no platform. They're against everything, not for anything, except the things that are the wrong things. What they're running on, I'll tell you what they're running on. They're running backwards. Mm-hmm. It's about the future, not the past. But guess what? We won't let them win the past.
So you don't have to worry. Biden's on top of it. The Republicans will not be winning the past. That's my new Biden impression. All right. And then here was another video. He was addressing the MTO. No, this was him actually coming clean on the fact that everyone's being like, dude, I don't think you should be doing this anymore. And this is straight from Biden. Let's give this one a watch.
And I spent over almost 200 hours with the leaders of Europe, the heads of state. I know them all. I've known them well. And guess what? You know what every one of them says to me, virtually except Orban? I'm serious. As we leave these meetings, well, indirectly, they grab my arm and they pull me aside. I'm serious. They pull me aside and say, he can't win again.
There you go. They are behind closed doors, and I'm sure they're saying a little bit more. And like, dude, you already made your Ukraine profits, and you're really making a mess for all of us. Don't you think maybe it's time to move on? And then, of course, as I was giving him credit, I was giving MTG credit for putting the crazy Republican women's back in the win category, because if it wasn't for her, they would be just in the lose category. You'd be like, what was this psychotic lady afterwards? But she did have a win, and living rent-free in his head that he had to address the moment afterwards, and here's what he had to say.
But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
Illegal? I invited these people in. You see how many policies I made to get people in here? I shouldn't be calling them illegal. That's not a nice thing to say to a murderer. Or we gotta have compassion. If we're gonna be better than my Republicans, we gotta showcase our compassion. And it's not nice calling a murderer an illegal.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look,
I was flustered. That crazy lady was yelling at me.
When I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any any of these people with disrespect. Look, they built the country. The reason our economy is growing. We have to control the border and more orderly flow, but I don't share his view at all.
Do you have any idea what the employment levels would look like if I wasn't bringing all these illegal workers over the border? Oh my God, every company would be failing. We need cheaper labor to combat all the healthcare policies and the other stuff I've put on companies if they hire Americans.
At all.
So you regret using that word?
Yes.
All right, and now we can take a look at the, we'll just watch a couple of the clips if you guys didn't watch the address by the crazy Republican lady to do the rebuttal of Joe Biden.
Was the performance of a permanent politician who has actually been in office for longer than I've been alive. One thing was quite clear, though.
This is the mother loves you voice. I care for you. Oh, all right. I don't know why you guys watched enough of that one anyways. All right, this is something that I've been talking about for a little bit with all the Donald Trump court cases, that it seems to me like they're probably going to disappear, and I don't think that they're going to illegalize Donald Trump. The Democrats do seem awfully calm, where you're like, are you guys really planning on just blatantly rigging this election? How many votes need to actually happen for Donald Trump where even they sit around and they're like, I don't know that we can send trucks overnight anymore? At what point is it such an obvious landslide where they even have to throw up their hands and they go, okay, we lost? Now, it seemed to me that the reason for these court cases were just creating their own news. First, they were trying to bully the guy out. They're trying to say, hey, listen, if you stay in this thing, you're going to be going to jail. And the bullying thing, it didn't work. Donald Trump's been riding it out. They're taking away $350 million in New York City. I'm sure they got even more court cases they're going to open up. Jean Carroll's going to be making even more claims about how she was fingered in while trying to try on things and get Donald Trump to try on Speedos so that she could have a laugh and write for her column. Listen, they've thrown everything at Donald Trump, and none of it seems to be sticking. You got the Supreme Court saying you can't take the guy off the ballot, giving him a handout by pushing the Jack Smith Florida case, I think, till after the election. The January 6th one, which was the one that he could go for jail for, seemingly falling apart because the deep state cast Fani Willis in the role of actually hiring the prosecutor for that. So that one got batched up. We did a whole episode on the bad minions of the deep state and the ray of hope of them being unable to actually execute their plans. And we did an episode previously, put it at 60% of bet on boring, which perhaps maybe the Democrats behind the scenes, they just know that they got this thing rigged. They've already worked with their dominions and they're good to go. Hopefully I don't get sued. You know what? We're talking shit over here. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Lords of the internet who sued Fox News into oblivion and took away Tucker Carlson. I don't actually know anything about Dominion in any capacity. I did zero research. I'm just saying that the Democrats seem to be oddly calm about an election that they're definitely going to lose as the court cases fall apart. And I'm wondering if he did win, if it's because they actually did know that they could rig it the entire time. But like I said, Lords of the internet, as I say this prayer to you to not cancel me, I don't actually know what I'm talking about, and I'm just phrasing questions. Okay, hopefully that, maybe we got to get like a legal liability ticker on the bottom at all times that just says, this bald man has absolutely no idea what he's talking about, and if you listen to him, you would not have gotten boosted 14 times, and your kids might not have got boosted, so we recommend that you continue not to listen to this bald individual. It seems to me they were just creating their own news and possibly trying to get themselves out of debating Donald Trump. Hey, we can't debate this guy. He's a known sexual assaulter in the state of New York. And then, Trump gets to go, well, yeah, and your guy's known to the Justice Department to have too much dementia to stand trial, which is a fun environment for politicians to be in, where you got the guy who has too much dementia to stand trial versus the other guy who's known to be a sexual assaulter in the state of New York, but the New York state system is so corrupt that they're unable to protect us from sexual assaulters or, put them in jail or prevent other crimes or being able to, how many other people seemingly must have gotten away with sexual assault in the 80s in New York City that the only one that's been prosecuted, as far as I know, from 30 years ago is this Jean Carroll case. And is it just because Donald Trump is so famous that New York City was willing to take on that case? I mean, how many other cases fell through the cracks? I think that's an indictment of our entire justice system. But here was Kamala Harris responding to a question, I believe on NBC, about whether or not she will debate whoever Donald Trump's vice presidential pick is. Let's give it a listen.
Will you commit to do a debate?
Peter, we just got through the State of the Union, and I am just so excited about what we accomplished last night and our president.
That seems odd. Why wouldn't you just commit to a debate? I mean, it's typically a part of the process. I get that Donald Trump just pulled off a landslide victory by not debating any of the people that didn't have a chance against him, but this is different. I mean, this is the actual presidential elections against people that are polling ahead of you. And it's usually one of the main vehicles that people actually tune in and get a feel for the candidates outside of the political ads that come from the action committees that we don't have anything to do with. And, you know, sure, there's millions of dollars being paid by super PACs and we don't coordinate, blah, 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 blah. But it would seem to all of us the presidential debates are pretty important. And sure, Biden got out of most of them the last time on account of the fact of Trump getting COVID, and Trump did a terrible job in that first debate. All he needed to do was sit back and let Biden talk, but instead he did the bullying thing that worked really well on Hillary Clinton because Hillary Clinton's a strong man, and so none of us felt bad for Hillary Clinton while Donald Trump wasn't standing at his podium, crowding her space, pulling all these tricks to really, get at her, and those tricks worked well. But when you had Biden who couldn't talk, who's just all frail, and you think his back's about to collapse on him, we started just feeling bad for the old man, so it didn't work. But now this time around, I'm already expecting that the Democrats are going to try and weasel themselves out of debates, and the way they're going to do it is go, I can't be on stage with a known sexual assaulter. And then I came across this clip. I think David Collum retweeted it, so I saw it. You've got Hillary Clinton Jr. here on CNN, some random person I never heard of, but basically saying exactly what my theory was of how the Democrats are going to try and handle the election. Let's give it a listen.
If he's going to be shameless, which is his greatest asset, the shamelessness of him, is then Biden has to get in there very hard and go rapist, racist, fascist over and over and over again. And then the trials are happening at the same time. He's just had to pay, he's just $93 million. Right.
This guy's a rapist and a criminal. I can't debate someone who's a rapist and a criminal. In fact, shame on the entire racist right of this country that they would platform this individual. This individual would mark the end of our democracy. As I try and restore decency, as I try and restore the soul of our nation, how can I even indict our entire democratic system by justifying this person being in this race as my opponent? That man is the devil, and I refuse to be on TV with him. I refuse to even accept that that person is challenging me as I try and restore our country.
Right now, and just hammer it in with those three things: rapist, racist, fascist. If he's going to be shameless, which is his.
And there you go. You get to play all the court cases. This man involved in 5 court cases, found guilty of fraud in the state of New York, fined $350 million and barred from doing business in the state of New York, found guilty of sexual assault in the state of New York. And you just keep talking about the court cases that you created. You create the court cases just so you can go, oh, look at the news story that I created. So clearly the person's guilty. All right, let's take a couple of comments. I'm gonna move to over here so I can actually read the comments. We'll get a second camera angle for the walkover. Maybe we'll make the walkover all dramatic. Common sense. I lost over 10K on Voyager. Will never hold anything but the keys from now on. You know what? I feel like you guys are jinxing me by telling me all these things about it. Like, I know are you guys gonna be the insurance for me when I lose the keys? Or, you know how often I lose things? John Smith. Dave is a failed comic. He's trying hard to make it. No, Dave Smith's an incredible comic. I tour the country with him. He kills all the time. And back in the LOL days when I saw him build Libertas, it was incredible to see him get up in front of hostile audiences that I was bombing in front of and him absolutely killing with brilliant ideas. Common sense. He doesn't want to hurt the illegal migrant murderer, just calls half of the citizens Nazis and the biggest threat to the country. That is accurate. And then bend over. Amen. May Dominion always bless your gibberish. Thank you, sir. You see, you know what? That guy wins the comment of the war today. All right. And now we've started the show, we got right into the political recap of what went on with the State of the Union. we can get into some random topics. You guys are talking about, I got to get my money off the exchanges. I got to get myself some keys. And just to showcase how lazy I am, I'd like to put up the optimum over and under, where for about a week now, the internet in my apartment, it doesn't work anymore, which, you know, it's not that bad. I just watch porn off my phone. It's not the biggest deal. I come into my fancy studio over here and I get the work done that I need to do. Now, yeah, would I rather be watching porn on my laptop? Of course. Do I prefer doing the work in the morning in my apartment where I can more comfortably take dumps in my bathroom before coming to here? And yes, I prefer having internet in my apartment, which is why I spend the $80 a month to have it. But Optimum, they won't provide it to me. And so the other day, I was like, you know what? I'm finally going to handle this. And after 2 hours of phone calls of some new Indian guy going, okay, let's reset your modem. All right, let's try and reset it again. Okay, let me escalate it to the next guy. Hey, you know what? Let's try and it's almost like when you go into a doctor's office, you got to explain your problem to a nurse, to explain it to an assistant, to explain it to another guy, and then the doctor walks in. So what's your problem? You didn't have a whole conference with the 14 people that I just had to explain the thing that I didn't want to talk to them about? I had to stand in here embarrassed and tell them about my medical problem just to have to start from scratch with you? Larry David did the best one of that when he had the gerbil inside of his asshole or whatever the hell it was. But we've all been there. So first you get the robot, and you got to go through the robot level, right? You got to do the whole robot level where the robot tries to do 4 resets, and they go, now we'll send you to a human. And then the human does exactly what the robot did, and he goes, oh, I guess that isn't working. We're going to have to escalate it. And if you're like me, that's when you're like, no, we're done here. I'm canceling the service. I'm going to hang up. And then you don't actually cancel the service, which brings me to, I need people in my life. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to be the closer, where you get your minions and you're like, listen, you stay on the phone for the robot, you stay on the phone for the 3 Indian dudes that don't know something, and then when you get to find the guy who can actually fix the problem, or maybe what the move is, you just have to make your starting point that you're calling and canceling, and then maybe you get someone who will actually fix it. Which brings me to something that we've talked about on the show before. I think I said it once when I was getting a rental car. You get off a plane, you're waiting on a 2-hour line now for a rental car, and it's unacceptable. And I was thinking, I wish the other people weren't being so polite. I mean, I have no choice. I'm going to be polite. And we all look at the frontline workers, which I know is the wrong term because that's what we were using for with like nurses and firefighters. You guys have a better term for front office personnel, the person at the desk. I don't know who you call that person. And you know what? We all let them off the hook. We all do it. You show up, I've had this late at night, and they tell you your reservation's not there. They accidentally canceled your reservation, or you're here too late for your reservation. I've had every argument you could possibly have in the world with some person at a hotel, and you always just got to be nice to that guy because you realize it's not your fault. You're working the midnight shift at the Holiday Inn Express out in Michigan. I get that you're not the sharpest of people. But you know what? When we let all of those people off the hook, they never go to their managers and go, hey, we have to fix the system. Which makes me actually think, because I've worked in offices where a boss comes to you and he tells you some terrible idea, and you go, boss, I think this is a terrible idea. And the boss goes, no, this is the best idea anyone's ever had. And I was like, and you're like, I really think this is going to piss off our clients. And they go, no, it's not going to piss off our clients. And you go, are you sure you want me to go represent this to our clients? Yes, this is your job. You have to. And you got to call with a couple clients and they yell at you and you're like, I knew this was a bad idea. And then you got to call back up your boss and go, hey, that was a bad idea. All right, I guess it was a bad idea. And that tends to be the process. You get these companies and they just go, well, we can get away with this. We can get away with not having breakfast. We can get away with closing people out of their reservations. We can get away with letting Priceline make reservations here and then telling you book through a third party. That's what they do because they're not there. They don't have to actually deal with you as the customer. And they just go, we can get away with this. And then because we're never actually dealing with the guy who's making the money, who made these decisions, who's just the idiot who has to represent those bad decisions, we decide to be polite to those people because we have no other choice because we're like, it's not your fault. And guess what? We need to start being yelly. Not me. I want to be a nice person. But other people need to start being yelly and mean to those people so they actually go back to their bosses. Like, we need like an Indian tech worker revolution where they actually revolt in their factories and they're like, you guys are giving us bad instructions about how we're supposed to actually, you haven't trained us on how to speak English. You haven't actually given us the tools to fix these problems for these people. Actually, you're just spending money for me to piss off your customers and spend time on the phone with them for things that I can't even solve. And then maybe if there was the actual great Indian phone revolt of 2024, then they'd stop outsourcing it or actually train them on how to fix the problems. But it's because of all of us just realizing it's not their fault and being polite about it that everyone just seems to get away with it. All right, this one's particularly dark. So, but they're talking about a Ramadan pause in Gaza, which they got to fast anyways. If you're going to starve the people, why would you take a break during the month when they can't eat? It just seems meaner. It literally seems meaner to go, okay, you guys can, you're already fasting this way this month anyway, so we'll send food in. All right, whatever. I make jokes on the show. I don't have to make the platitudes of that. I hope that people in the Middle East stop killing each other. All right. What do we got next? This is a fun one. French President Emmanuel Macron, 47, fires back for first time and claims wife 70 was born a man. My wife's not born a man. I'm just banging an old lady. She's just old. This isn't a dude. She's just old, okay? I'm just banging some old lady, please. Why do you have to point this out? I'm trying to live my life with this old lady. She's not a dude, okay? I like this. You know why I like this? It shows that it's two reasons. One, we're getting to these people. You know what? We're not done. Like I said, we got to be meaner to the frontline workers on the phones working for these corporations, for your hotel staff, for your airport check-ins, and do it for me, because you probably, listen, if you get banned from an airline or something, you probably only fly once a year. But if you're a person that just takes one vacation a year or two vacations a year and you use that and you're really mean to everyone at the airport as a sacrifice to people like me that have to be in the airport every weekend, that's how you make a positive contribution. I also like this, that apparently we're getting to them where world leaders actually feel like they have to come forward and address that the people that they're married to aren't men. I can't wait for the day Obama finally has to actually get out there and be like, Melania, she certainly does not have a penis. Yes, I prefer the back entrance. It's that's why I married her. It's a nice big booty. So I'm using the back, but she's actually, in fact, she has a front entrance. Smells worse at times than the back one, but yes. While it's true that I prefer the back entrance, I'd like to keep everyone in mind that she does, in fact, have a front entrance. Now, so win number one is showcasing the fact that the nonsense that you say on Twitter is actually getting to your world leaders, and it's getting to them enough that they have to address it, which is fun. So everyone who's out there saying that Macron isn't just banging an old lady, but she's actually an old man, I give you props for it. Double down, triple down, shout it even louder, and make this guy constantly have to walk around and address the fact that his wife is actually a lady. That's just fun. 2, this is the collateral damage of the trans movement, that women with more masculine type features now have to actually justify the fact that they are authentic women. Because listen, we've all been attracted to somewhat more there's plenty of women out there that back in the day you were tweeting, oh, that's kind of a sporty chick, and then you're like, oh, but that might be a man. And so now you're just like, nope. That's the collateral damage. So for all of the, if it can save one trans person, if it can save just one life, if we can convince just one person to spend their entire life being treated by the medical healthcare professionals and need constant upkeep and chemicals and everything else, was it worth it to all the slightly attractive but doodlier looking women who now they have to walk around and convince people that they aren't trans? That's the collateral damage. Next up, House panel unanimously approves bill that could ban TikTok. Because, we can't have China feeding our kids all sorts of crap and taking their data. That's what we got to do. We need to control the crap that our kids are seeing online and the data that we're able to take from them. I like this, though, because you know what? I became libertarian leaning all the way back in high school when I was smoking weed, and you realize government's not your friend. You're like, I don't understand. I hate school and I love this weed. And now you're telling me that I could go to jail for this plant that makes everything that's bad feel all right? I don't feel this way anymore. I don't smoke weed like I did back in high school. But back in high school, when you found the one thing you loved in life and government was telling you were a criminal for it when you weren't harming anyone else, you kind of realized, oh, these people aren't my friend. They're not doing me any favors. And so you take TikTok away from all these kids, you know, and who knows, maybe 10 years later they turn around and they realize that all the crap that they were consuming on TikTok and all the thing that China was convincing them of, taking Tide Pods, trying to become trans, praising Dylan Mulvaney, who knows, maybe they'll all turn around and go, Big Brother really saved me. But I bet in the meantime, you're actually going to wake a generation of kids up to, hey, what do you guys, why are you taking away this thing that I like? I like sitting passively, scrolling endlessly, and watching stupid shit, and you're going to take it from me? And now, obviously, the problem here is every time they talk about, well, you know, the data is dangerous, all the data that they can accumulate is dangerous, the things that they would know, aren't you also showing your cards of what you guys are doing? I mean, why is it that all the companies that you guys work with and you buy data from, we shouldn't be, because governments are, right, because you guys do it. When you're doing it, it's all in our interest. When it's another government that's doing it, it's not. And to what extent does this just favor Facebook and Instagram, who appear more willing? Well, I get, you know, TikTok even censored even more. And then, of course, Donald Trump turning around, he says, without TikTok, Facebook and Zuckerschmuck will double their businesses. Of course, it won't do anything for Truth Social because no one uses it. It has nothing to do with me. No one uses my website. And then I saw this claim that the reason why Donald Trump is now all of a sudden pro-China, pro-TikTok, doesn't want to ban the thing is because he's got this one donor who invested $30 billion into TikTok and has spent $10 million. Doesn't seem like enough of a bribe. And also, it's not like a money that's like the fact that you spent $250,000 with Mike Johnson's campaign. It's like, give me the real details of what kind of bribes are happening behind the scene. If you tell me that there's an American guy with $30 billion in this and he's handing $1 billion, like, is it really that cheap to bribe politicians that $10 million to a campaign will actually change? Like, I mean, firstly, that would then showcase the entire way the system works, that the only way that you can keep your $30 billion investment alive is if you got the money to bribe politicians into not just, you know, making your product illegal is one. And two is, doesn't it almost not seem like enough money? Or tell me the real story of the actual direct payments that are going to these people and not just the payments that are going to the campaign. All right, this was a fun one. Letita James, who was the person who prosecuted Donald Trump, said that, hey, we can't have you making money in the state of New York taking out loans. We need to be bailing out these banks, and we need to make sure that that money is going to, I don't know, I don't know who wasn't able to get a loan because Donald Trump got, or we already did this in a previous episode. Let's roll the tape of her getting booed by the firefighters of New York City.
I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Attorney General Letita James. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Attorney General Letita James.
By the way, that's the most New York thing ever. I remember in high school, I drank in like this firefighter bar a couple times, and there's nothing better than that. The guy at the St. Paddy's Day Parade, the extremely Irish fire marshal. I mean, that's God bless that still exists in New York, because that's as good as and as authentic as it gets.
Oh, come on, we're in a house.
So you got to love that when these people have to actually confront real people, they get booed. You see Donald Trump showing up, you see these massive rallies, and then you see Biden and he can barely fill a Warrior House. And then you actually get in front of like the people that do real work in this country, your firefighters, your construction workers, your non-laptop class individuals, and you realize, oh, wow, all the middle of America hardworking individuals that you would like to pretend are the people that you care about. You know, the mom and pop working on a farm, had their daughter, the ones that they always like to pretend that they're talking about in their speeches. And then you actually get in front of those individuals and they're like, we love Trump, go fuck yourself. And now there was chatter of that perhaps these firefighters who booed Letita James were going to have to go to some sort of a re-education class, which obviously sounds incredibly, like that's some deep communism right there. And who knows what those classes are going to look like when you get a bunch of burly firefighters and you got to retrain them that they're not allowed to boo people. I also don't know how accurate that is, that they will actually be sent to re-education classes, but the claim was made. We haven't done any sponsors yet. Let's take a moment to thank sheathunderwear.com, the only place in the entire world where you can get the most comfortable underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. I got my sheaths on right now. I guess they're low riding a little bit. What do we got? Classic reds, everybody. Sheaths, you can wear them as normal boxer briefs. I promise you, I always hated boxer briefs. It had this thing where it felt like someone was like bunching up on my stuff, but not with the sheaths. The sheaths, what I like the longer sheath ones that kind of go just above the knee. And dude, the way it keeps your fat thighs moving smoothly, you get no friction, you get no rubbing. You don't get that thing that feels like a fire is going to start between your legs and that maybe you should lose weight because you're chafing all the time. You could probably go 4 or 5 days without showering and your balls would still smell fresh if you were wearing sheathunderwear.com. Moisture wicking fabrics, keep everything cool, calm, and collected. You ain't getting all sweaty in this. It absorbs everything, keeps things separated. If you haven't tried sheaths yet, you got to give them a try. Sheathunderwear.com, promo code RYM for 20% off the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. All right, we just have a couple more news stories that I want to hit. The next one is I always like showcasing the government regulations that I think really hinder economic growth. And we've also talked about when you had your whole racket of the BlackRocks, the ESG scores, and people trying to say that the Fed should also take green energy into account. Their mandate shouldn't just be a dual mandate of employment and inflation. They should also think about the environment. And so forget whether or not people, you know what, maybe what we should do is have 10% unemployment, but, less damage to the environment. Maybe that's the way the Fed should start thinking about things. It's not just about employment and inflation, but it's also, are we preserving the environment? And who knows what that means, or whether or not if we even shut down all industry in this country, if it would make any difference in terms of carbon creation in the sky, and with China and India not just creating more factories and then polluting even more to sell us stuff that we just can't make over here. But guys, it's all in the name of the environment. So anyways, this was from the Wall Street Journal, and it's exploring the SEC regulations that basically companies have to self-report on their, basically how, we're going to read it, maybe I don't have my summary right, but basically how their activities will affect the environment. Two problems with this. One, it creates a framework by which in the future, I guess they could further regulate these companies and further regulate, what they're doing. And two, it takes brain power away from economic growth, growing your company, trying to actually have value and profits, and puts it towards a new form of regulation where not only do you have to run your stress test or this or that to make sure that you're solvent and self-reporting to the government, but you're also responsible for your own. It's like the government wants to regulate you, but you have to do your own homework for it. You have to actually sit down and self-incriminate yourself and hand over the records of what you're doing. It's not even government's obligation to go and do that. All right, let's give it a read. The SEC's political climate control. Securities and Exchange Commissioner Chair Gary Gensler on Wednesday released his regulatory magnum opus, an 886-page climate disclosure rule. Call an election year gift to class action attorney and a financial stimulus for auditors. Progressives have lobbied the SEC to require public companies to make detailed disclosures of their climate-related risks and CO2 emissions. Mr. Gensler obliged. The rule exceeds the agency's authority under the law and imposes new costs on public companies, even if it doesn't go as far as some of Mr. Gensler's friends on the left want. The rules force public companies to report how they assess and manage climate-related risks, including the risks from the government-imposed green transition. Transition risks are broadly defined to include climate-related changes in law or policy, reduced market demand for carbon-intensive products, the devaluation of abandonment of assets, risks of legal liability and litigation defense costs, competitive pressures associated with adoption of new technologies, reputational impacts, and more. In short, companies will have to project hypothetical changes in government climate policies and market demand, no matter how improbable, and explain how they are managing such risks. What about the risk that consumers don't warm to electric vehicles, that governments are forcing automakers to produce, or that climate policies are scaled back as they have been in Europe? Companies won't have to explain how they're managing the more tangible risks. Companies will also have to document spending on climate-related effects and mitigation, including carbon offset to comply with voluntary goals and government regulation. Businesses don't currently All right, we're going to stop there. You guys can read the rest of this article, but showcasing once again government regulation that instead of just being able to run a business, try and create products that consumers actually want, creating them at better value than your competition so you can grow your market share, create more capital, and then invest in other things that you think consumers will want and do it better than your competition, you have to sit down and try and figure out what businesses the government will actually... It's not about the products or services consumers might want. It's about making investments now in products or services that the government might let you sell, or might just change the laws in 2 years or give up on some sort of initiative, and then all of a sudden you're losing money because you thought that you were doing something that government regulations were going to make profitable. All right, last news story for today. I saw this in Mish Talk, and they were talking about how a lack of enthusiasm for Biden might get younger voters to just stay home. And you know how they have like their just get out and vote? And obviously it's always like at rock concerts with younger kids just trying to get more people that would vote liberal to go and vote liberal. I don't know. I'm just thinking in my head, maybe we can create some sort of alternative thing of just alienate and stay home. Like maybe we can do on voting day, like bigger tournaments for like Call of Duty, bigger tournaments on DraftKings, like just do things to incentivize people that might vote liberal to just stay home and do absolutely nothing instead. I mean, if the Democrats were smart, they would put together like the biggest NASCAR event. They'd put together like the biggest farm offs or something. But maybe we can think ahead of them, and the same way they're going into old age homes and they're trying to get people as many ballots as possible so they don't have to show up and vote. Maybe we can do things to just like piss off kids so that they feel more disenfranchised from the system, and then just create like better video games and shit, and like the election day Call of Duty. I don't know what other games are popular. Like maybe that's the day that we should get Rockstar to release the next GTA. Have some sort of $1 million tournament going for, what's that? I can't even remember what the video game was. All right, that is our show. Thank you for hanging out with us. Guys, this Chicago, opening up for Dave Smith. We've got shows at Rosemont. We've got shows at the old school Chicago Room. Here's a big one. Here's the most urgent porch tour that I'm working on now. Me and Dave, we're only doing one night in Portland. I'm working on some other gigs, possibly with Dave Smith, but I want to stay out west, maybe even for 2 full weeks. So there might be a Boise, Idaho show coming. I might be doing a show in, I have to confirm it, April 20th, probably in Wyoming, wherever that big-ass ski mountain is. But listen, I'm already starting to stack porch tour gigs. A lot of the stuff that we did last year is going to be later in the summer, August and September. That's going to be like California, Colorado, all of those good guys, Arizona's, Las Vegas. Those guys, all of those were incredible shows. I want to repeat all of them. I just want to do them a little bit later in the summer. I want to do Texas later so that we can be outdoors. I don't want to be in Las Vegas again in August in 110 degrees. That was a mistake. We're learning. We're learning from Porch Tour. But what I'm actively working on, I want to get a Boston on the books. I want to get a Philly on the book. Maybe a DC. I want to do the Carolinas. I want to do the Virginias. I'm probably going to do another one up in Pittsburgh. So maybe we'll do Cleveland. So start hitting me up with those porches. But the most urgent porch requests are going to be kind of anything, I guess, that's flyable coming to or from Portland or whatnot. All right, that's the show. Let's read a couple of comments. Oh, and plug YoKratom.com, home of the $6 kilo. They're the ones that, they back the studio. They've been on the show 3 years. If you guys are into the Kratom products, you're not going to find better products anywhere. And if you're not, you can go to their sister website, YoDelta.com, load up on some gummies. Megaton Samurai. Fasting only counts when you have food but don't eat it. Fair enough. Some Quack. Rob and BK Chris, permanent pod, please. One of my favorites to podcast with, and it sounds to me like he actually got the notes of a goon out from the car, which, I don't know that we got the cleanest audio, so that's cool that went out. Tom Doe, what about women with a husky voice? Used to be sexy, now they're possibly dudes and not worth the risk. Fair point. Common sense. Letita is now going after the firemen that booed her for training, said to turn themselves so they don't have to hunt them down. Fun. By the way, never fall for that trick. That's like tell your kids in high school, never admit. Force, it's always, if you come forward, we're going to be nicer to you. Oh my, if we have to actually make them come find you, make them find you guilty. Never turn yourself in thinking that you're going to get some more leniency. It never works that way. They're just bitching you out. Some quack. Portland was great last year. Can't wait. One of the funnest of the show. And dude, that's going to be so cool that we're doing a theater. Portland, it seemed to me on Porch Tour, was firstly, that was a fun setup because it was almost like a natural amphitheater in that backyard where I was on the corner of the porch and it was kind of in the round. Also, typical Porch Tour, I would say it's like 30, 40 people. I feel like that one was more like 60. We get more in some, like Colorado turns into like 100, which is cool. There's some places that we've done a bunch of times, so it's like sometimes I get to see the people from the previous year and it's grown a little bit. But that one, it seemed like people were particularly on board for my brand of filth because they were just like, thank you so much for coming out here. We don't get alternative stuff like this that often in our woke hellhole. It was like all people that moved outside of Portland that were super fans. So my guess is that that theater show with Dave is going to be pretty electric and unreal just based off of the flavor of what I experienced from the smaller Porch Tour. All right, that is our episode. Hopefully going to get out one more this week. By the way, you know, sometimes I say things and it never happens, but as you were talking about the BK Chris episode, I'm just kind of thinking in my head, run your mouth. Where are we going? What are we doing here? I do want to start doing some paywalled episodes. We're not there yet. I really want to do the leftover and call-in show, which will be a little bit looser than these episodes. Sometimes the topics I get tired on at the end of the show we get there, or like they're a little bit looser. They're not fully researched. I sometimes like I start feeling now, we've done so many good episodes. I don't want to do anything that's a little, and which is getting in the way of putting out more. And it's a bad thought for creativity. So I want to start paywalling some looser episodes, taking calls while we're doing it. And then I'd also like to do maybe more looser guest episodes in that format as well. In which case I would podcast with BK Chris, Mike Harrington, maybe get some old Yussel food reviews going. That works. All right, that's our show. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good week. Back probably Thursday, Friday, or something else for a new one. That's it.